Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome to another edition of eHeroes. Today I'm bringing on, which I think is a fantastic guy who's all about podcast marketing. And, this is episode 84, and I've been doing this for a while now. And I think that this guy, his name's Chris Hines. I want you guys to remember his name, but he's going to teach us some things that maybe you haven't you figured out when you're trying to get your podcast launched. So, Chris, I'm glad you're here, and I think you're going to open some eyeballs.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's been interesting the last few months. In March, we reached 1 million podcasts on Apple. So, with it being so many shows now, the marketing is more important than ever.
Yeah, and I think that I got an email yesterday from Apple that they're opening up the markets in Asia and Europe and all kinds of places, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
that's
growing.
great. It's great, but the problem is it also increases that noise. So, you know, we as podcasters need to develop skills that kind of get our podcasts out there and listened to.
Yeah, man, that's so true. And it's so many different strategies and little tweaks you can do that make your podcast stand out. One thing I teach my clients is about creating your own lane.
Hmm.
You don't want to be just another podcast in the same old industry talking about the same old thing.
Yeah,
You have to really separate yourself,
yeah,
and it can be difficult to strategize that, but once you do, man, your podcast will never be the same. And if you have a business attached to your show, it definitely won't be the same.
yeah. And as an author, I could have, I could have made a lot of my podcasts about the books that I write, and I thought I don't want to pigeonhole myself, and that's why I came up with the eHeroes, because I can take entrepreneurs from all over the world and get them to reveal their superpower. And it may not have a huge audience, but what it does is those people who do listen, who do gravitate towards it, are going to be more inclined to want to hire me.
That's true. That's true. And I think a lot of authors and speakers and coaches kind of do that. They pigeonhole themselves to one specific area. And when you do that, it becomes difficult to branch out and your brand becomes about one thing. And it's just hard for people to really consume that. And then it's hard for you to attract new people into your world.
Yeah.
Whereas when you kind of have, I call them brand branches, where
Mhm.
little areas of interest that other people might be interested in could be what attracts them to you. And then they learn more about you and like, oh, okay, I can learn this too. That really, really helps your brand grow.
Yeah. And for me, interviewing brilliant entrepreneurs like yourself is I get them not only to share their experiences, but I learn a ton of great information from them just getting to interview them. And so for me, the podcast kind of does double duty because it teaches my audience what they need to know. It teaches me a ton too. So that if I want to write another book about it, I already got the expert right there, and we can say, hey, you want to partner up on a book? And they're like, yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's great stuff.
That relationship aspect, I think it's the most underrated thing about podcasting, especially if you're doing interviews where you can go and talk to other people in your industry. Like most people would look at certain people that are ahead of them in their market as competition, when in reality, you should have them on your show, build a relationship, get their email, their phone number, so they can give you insight. You can share insight with them. That relationship really trumps anything else. It's something I tell people about, and they kind of look at me crazy when they ask me what's my favorite thing about podcasts. I'm like, getting to talk to other business owners. Like I get to learn from them. You know how amazing it is to talk to a millionaire and see what they did to make their first million. Man, that is so fun to me.
Yeah, at the very beginning we mentioned Apple, and Apple is one of the biggest podcast channels out there. But you don't have to always be on Apple. I know some people who will say, I'm only on Google Play, or I'm only over here, or I'm only on Himalaya, and they drive that traffic to that one source, which I guess is okay. I prefer to be on a lot of them because that way they're going to get seen by somebody.
Exactly. And when you kind of, again, that's another way of pigeonholing yourself. If you say, my show is only available on Apple, then you kind of cut off most of the other podcast listeners, because even people that have iPhones don't use Apple Podcasts as much
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
There's so many other platforms. And as far as podcast marketing, one of the tools that I use, it's called Wave. WAVVE, and you can create a link. And with that one link, you can actually go and add all podcast platforms onto that one page. For
Wow.
example, if you go to wave.link/PBP, you'll see my show, The Personal Branding Playbook. And on that page, you can access my podcast on Apple, Google Play, my YouTube page, Spotify, Stitcher. All the top podcast apps are available on one page. So the Wavelink is honestly one of the best marketing tools for podcasters available, and it is free.
Wow. There you go. Free. We all like free. I find that Spotify and Stitcher are great because people gravitate towards them. I've been having a hard time getting on iHeartRadio, and I tried last year and I tried again this year, and I thought, you know what, I don't care. There's so many other ones out there. If your heart is set on iHeartRadio, great, try to get on there. But people are finding me at other places that you know so if you can't get on one, there's still 100 other ones out there.
Yeah, and I say iHeartRadio, Pandora. There are some big platforms where you might think a lot of people are listening to podcasts, but that's where more of an older audience is listening to the radio.
Yeah.
Podcasts is they're there, but most of those people don't really even know what they are just yet. So getting your show on there, it's cool, but it's not really gonna move the bottom line at all. Like it doesn't really matter, to be honest.
So what got you started in podcast marketing?
It's funny. I was a podcaster for about 5 years before I started the marketing aspect. And I started off. I remember on Twitter, somebody sent me a message, and they were like, "Hey, you talk about." I was talking about basketball a lot at this point in time. I was playing, coaching, writing, just doing everything in the basketball space. So I got invited onto a radio show, and I remember being in the closet just because my house was so loud, and I was live on the radio, but I didn't realize how good I was at just speaking. And so after I get off of the radio, I didn't even know it was live. I thought it was being recorded. And a ton of people were tweeting me, "Hey, you should start your own show. Do you have your own show?" They were looking for my show. And I'm like, I don't have a show. So that's when I started podcasting. I made a commitment right there. Like, okay, I don't know a lot about this, but I'm going to learn it.
Yeah.
Fast forward 5 years later, now I speak at several of the big podcast events. I'm working with people like Pat Flynn, Everett Gonzalez, so many people at the top of the podcast industry. And what I notice is there's so many hosts, there's so many networks, there's so many creators, but very few people market their shows correctly.
Yeah.
I personally got annoyed with people taking their podcast link of their episode and just posting it everywhere and saying they marketed their show. That's not marketing. That is not. You're sharing. You're
Right.
not marketing. So I knew from my experience of marketing shows, getting them on the top charts, and working with several sponsors, making thousands of dollars, that I can help people with this. So I felt like it was my duty to serve.
Hmm.
So it's just, man, it's been fun. It's been very fun.
Yeah, and what I've noticed with social media, especially Facebook, is that trying to share anything with a podcast link, it doesn't go anywhere. Facebook just says, "Hey, we don't like that link, so we're not sharing it."
Yeah, Facebook is really against you sharing links unless you're paying for it. If you pay for it, by all means, you can
Yeah.
share it as many times as you want to. But that's why it's so many strategies behind marketing your show. Where for me, for example, when I market my podcast episodes, I put out content to market the episode before I post the link. You'll see a video, you'll see a graphic or something before you even see a link to listen,
Hmm.
because I want to get you engaged and get your attention. And then after I have your attention, oh, okay, here, you can listen to the full show on this site.
Yeah.
That's what really, really helps me.
Yeah. I mean, the snippets really help, I think, drives a lot of people because then it builds curiosity, you know. Just sharing that link, the full video out there just doesn't do it.
Yeah, and with the snippets too, I make sure it's branded up. I have my logo on there, my brand colors. I even add subtitles, because if you're on a place like LinkedIn, most of those people can't listen to a video, like they don't like to.
Right.
And I tested this out. Like I put up 2 videos that didn't have subtitles, and then I put 2 videos that do have subtitles. And the videos with subtitles were trending. in my market. So I said,
Wow.
okay, every video has to have subtitles now.
Yeah. And that's really important because, people that are at work, they don't want to listen, they can still read. You know,
Exactly.
one of the things that we just did for a client, last year we built their website, we hosted their podcast, and we have it distributed out to the different channels. And then we took the first 52 episodes and we compiled into a book. We transcribed them all, put them into a book, and now he hands the book out to his clients because a lot of them don't get on podcasts because they're older. But then they have this book that's this resource, and they love it. And so it's good to always recycle that information and get it out there to new markets.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. One of the things that I just recently got my first assistant. Man, that felt amazing. So now those clips I used to market an episode, I will send it to my assistant and say, "Hey, transcribe this."
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be between 7 and 9 minutes. So it's like a basic blog post.
Mm-hmm.
Then I take that blog post and I can have it on my website to market the episode even more. And I put it on medium.com. So you just think about it, and sometimes even an article on LinkedIn. So now I've marketed that one podcast episode 5 or 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you market a podcast. You don't just take the link and then share. You need content.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never used Medium. Is it better than LinkedIn? What's the advantages?
I will say it's not better than LinkedIn. It's better in a different way.
Okay.
Medium is a way to attract a lot of new readers that you might not know, that might not be aware of who you are. Some people use Medium to, generate revenue from writing
Mm-hmm.
because you can sign up for their program and they pay you to write.
Oh,
For
wow.
me, I use it to market my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That's most important to me. So throughout every blog post, I have links to the show. At the end, there's a call to action. Go and subscribe to the show. And what it does, it really positions your show to a different audience. So it really helps build a brand. Again, with having a podcast, you always want to be reaching out and attracting new people to your world.
Mm-hmm.
So medium.com is another one of those brand branches that brings people in.
And one of the things that I do is also create a Facebook dedicated group page for the podcast. Now, I just did that recently, and so I think I have, I don't know, 100 people, but mostly the people I invite are the speakers who have attended, my podcast, and so they're more likely to share it out to their fans, friends, and followers again and again and again. And but yeah, I mean, putting it on Medium, putting them on LinkedIn, sharing the YouTube snippets and all those other things are great, but do you also do any paid advertising?
I do some paid advertising, and it's funny because in the beginning I only did retargeting. So I
Mm-hmm.
post so much content that, if you go to my Instagram page, my Facebook page, and you engage there, I can retarget you very well. But I've started putting money into cold traffic because I have a book coming out very soon, because now I want to start bringing more people into my world. And
Mm-hmm.
so those cold traffic ads are always just really valuable content, straight to the point. And most people have a call to action of sign up to my mailing list.
Yeah.
For me, it's go and listen to the podcast.
Right.
And it works really, really well, man. Like, I've been able to attract about 50 new listeners a week.
Wow.
Now, if those people stay around or not, it's been difficult to measure, honestly.
Yeah.
But I notice a spike when I run those ads. So the key for me right now is constantly bringing in cold traffic and then kind of filtering those people out. So the people who aren't really interested, like if you wouldn't buy my book, then I mean, like you said, you don't really have to be around. I'm okay with losing people.
Right.
So I've been able to filter people out by bringing a lot more people into my world.
And that's the reason why I write books too. And we talked about this off the podcast earlier, is that, with every book that I put out, regardless of the subject, it boosts my authority. So whether it's social media, whether it's SEO, whether it's, fighting scams or or even podcasting, people see that, I have the knowledge to help them. And sometimes it even turns out, hey, can you help me write my book? So now I have, another deal that I have to help them with. So it just, everything that you do uh, from your podcast to your marketing, all has to be kind of, um, what's the word? Consistent.
Yeah, that's so important to me now. And I've been able to create this flow in my life to where everything I do from the waking moment to when I go to rest, it all works together. That I think is what all entrepreneurs should strive for, because there's nothing better than every piece of content you create, every prospect you talk to, everything working together. Nothing is really fighting each other. Everything is just working together and benefiting something else.
Yeah.
Like you said, not only the relationship aspect, but it's time to sell or promote. I have so many connections now, and even my new book that's coming out, it's not about podcasting per se, but
Mhm.
it's about personal development.
Right.
And if you're a podcaster, then you're into personal development. You kind of have to be, because everything goes back to personal brand. It all
Right.
starts with you. Even if you host a show for your business,
Right.
it all starts with you and who you are. So everything working together is just, man, it's beautiful.
And we talk about branding and personal branding, and but you have to be real. So, how you see me now is how you're going to get me on stage, how you're going to get me, in a book, on social media. I'm very sarcastic, but I want people to understand that it's not in a detrimental way. It's just the way I am. If you're offended, I'm sorry. Too bad. Go away. If you like it, you're going to be more prone to want to hire me, and that's what I want. We live in this world where everybody gets triggered by something. I'm not out there to please everyone. And I don't want people out there to think that they're supposed to be out there pleasing everyone either. Your brand is who you are. So, if you're a kind soul, great, continue to be that. If you're a curmudgeon like me, you have to portray that across all platforms, because honestly, people are going to say, well, I just saw you speak, but then I read your book and your book is nothing like you. What's the deal?
Right? It's so easily visible when you
Yeah.
fake it.
Yeah.
Like when you fake who you are, it's so easily visible because it's hard to keep up that facade.
Yeah.
Like you can do it on stage for a short period of time and then maybe in your videos, but then when somebody sees you and they shake your hand off stage, you're like, wait, this is a different person. So you have to be who you are naturally. That's something I talk about in the book, The Milestone System, as well, is like, if you're not committed to being who you are, you can't get to a positive flow state. You can't get all the things that you really want because you yourself internally, you're having a fight inside.
Yeah.
So it's just, I agree, man, 1000%.
I had early on in my career, I had a guy come up to me and says, well, Rob, you're in a t-shirt and jeans and you're telling me how to do marketing. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. And he says, well, don't you think a suit and tie would be better? I said, better for who? A banker or for me? And he says, well, you. I said, no, this is who I am. And he says, well, you never amount to anything in business. I said, okay, great. 2 years later, he filed bankruptcy. He was out of work and I'm still plugging along and I'm making money. And I'm like, dude, you got to be real. Yeah, it is what it
You
is.
have to be. And I think it's even more important for us to be real now because, like you said, we do have those people that are overtly sensitive. Like everything bothers them, everything triggers them. And there's no place where it's worse than Twitter.
Right.
It's no place worse than
I jumped off
Twitter.
of Twitter a long time ago. I couldn't take it anymore.
But it's good. I think it can be good for entrepreneurs if you know how to navigate it. Once you learn how to navigate the Twitter world, it can be something that changes your business and
Right.
always fuels you going forwards. But I do think it can be difficult for some more than others. I understand.
Yeah, the Twitter to me still is a chaotic world, like the wild wild west. Facebook is become very triggered. Um, Snapchat is not my market, and neither is the TikTok.
Yeah, it's
Most of my clients, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're professionals. I'm going to find them on LinkedIn, or YouTube. All the millennials coming up, they're going to be on TikTok and Snapchat, and by the time they're my market, I'm going to be dead. So I'm not worried about it.
But it's good that you know where your market is, because one thing I teach my clients is, hey, look, wherever your market is for your business, that's probably where your ideal listeners are.
Yeah.
Like some people have a podcast that's for doctors and lawyers, and they're trying to find out how they can market on TikTok. It's
Yeah.
like, just because Gary Vee told you to market on TikTok doesn't mean you have to market your podcast on TikTok. Like, most lawyers and doctors are on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yes, there's more competition on there because that's where your actual benefits are. If you go to TikTok, you won't get too much positive feedback. It's gonna be a ghost town, man. Come on.
Yeah, and lately, with the isolation that we're all feeling, I think people are getting anxious. They have a voice. They know that they need to have a podcast. They don't know how to get started, and if they do get started, they have no idea how to market. So I think for them to come to you would be the ultimate you know uh, thing for them to do. I mean, it's just that compliment. Hey, Chris, help me out because I heard you on Rob's show, and from start to finish, you're going to help them.
Yeah, for sure. That's one thing I'm really passionate about. And if anybody has any questions on podcast marketing, development, any of that stuff, the setup, um, you can just reach out to me, Instagram or Twitter, the Coach Chris _, or you can check out our website, elitepodcastmarketing.agency, book a call there. We have group coaching programs. We have all kind of products and services that can help you out. And we do podcast production, which is something a lot of people need.
Yeah.
Every month we can professionally produce your show. Again, just reach out and we can get started.
Is there I don't produce a lot of I mean, I can't say produce, but I don't edit a lot of my stuff. So what you see is what you get. I put the logo up top. I put links in the bottom, and they can go find people. But I think there's only been 5 episodes out of 84 I actually had to go in and edit. Only because they either dropped the F-bomb or they did this or they had a pause for something. But I find sometimes the people that have the really good podcasts that get a lot of subscribers are better edited than others.
Yeah, the professional sound is definitely a big part of podcasting, because the people you want to have on as guests, those doctors, those lawyers, those are the same people that are listening to other shows.
Mm-hmm.
And those are your ideal clients. They're also your ideal listeners. So that professionalism, it just takes you to a different level as far as your show is concerned. Most podcasters, when they start off, they don't have the budget to pay for production. But I always tell them you should pay for it because, well, number one, it takes away the time. You don't have to do it yourself. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to learn how to edit yourself. That's a whole nother job. Believe me, I did it. I know.
Oh,
Number
I hate
two,
editing. Nah.
it's so bad. Like now I have a team of editors that I worked with in the agency. But the second thing is it helps you market better, because when you take away the stress of having to worry about editing this and making that, all of your time and energy can go to marketing the show. And third, you can get higher quality guests when your show sounds better. So in the beginning, when you don't have the production, it's hard to get high quality guests. But as your show sounds better and better, like when you get a new microphone, when you have an editor removing ums and ahs, maybe you put a little bit of effort into the intro. Now that high level industry leader you were looking to get on your show is more inclined to be a guest because you have a professional presentation. And this is how I explain to my clients: it's not about building a podcast. You want to build a platform. You want to have a show that's so good that anybody in your industry that's putting out a book or has a new program launching, they're dying to be on your show and talk about it. That's what you want. You want your own platform like HBO. That's what you got to have.
And the first couple episodes are probably not going to be the greatest. I mean, this is episode 84, and it took me a while to get that feeling of comfort behind not only the camera but the microphone. And every show I'm kind of tweaking, changing, making sure, okay, did I say this? Am I saying that? Is the guest being comfortable? And it takes time.
Yeah, it's not something that you start one day and then the next day it's all good. Like you're the best. Like it takes time. My first show, it was a basketball podcast. It was called the Simply Hoop Show, and it was terrible. My audio was bad. I had a lot of ums and ahs, a lot of breaks. I didn't know how to edit at the time. My logo was even bad. It was just all around bad. But that was when I learned a lot. You know, those first 20 episodes, I learned a lot. And since then, it's just been all uphill.
And that's great, and I think sometimes you need to have a failed year of a podcast to see that, maybe that subject wasn't right for you, but it launches you into something else that was unexpected, but has now become your passion.
Yeah, those millions of shows that are out now, a lot of them won't be around in 6 months. That's
Yeah.
just a reality. Like a lot
And
of them are going to keep dropping out because they don't have that passion and they haven't had that failed time to understand, okay, I got to get better at this.
yeah. And one of the things that I try to do is I try to batch record. And so some of you guys might be, saying, well, you Rob, you mentioned the isolation. Well, we're not in isolation anymore. Well, that's probably because I batched recorded this when we were in isolation. And the reason I do that is because about 50 episodes back, I stalled because I was recording one a week. And then I went on vacation. Then I came back, forgot the podcast. And then I went somewhere else. And then, life happens.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
couldn't record anymore. And then 3 months later, I'm like, well, I got to get this podcast started again. So I did, but it took probably another 10 more episodes for Apple and everybody else to kick in and say, oh yeah, that feed's active again. Let's start, helping you market, because
Yeah.
they would call it a dead feed if you don't have it, if you're not producing enough. So now
That's
I
it.
try to produce enough content that if I go on vacation or break a leg or something, there's enough content that it feeds out once a week and I don't have to worry about it.
That's so important, the batching. And it's not really that difficult to batch. I had one point in time where I had over 50 episodes in my vault.
Wow.
Like 50, and that's amazing because it's only 52 weeks in a year. Like I could put out, that means I could have took a break for the rest of the year and still have my podcast going every single week. And so I try to tell my clients, if you want to do one interview per week, just batch produce those interviews every month. That means just the first week of the month, do
Yeah.
4 interviews. That's it.
Yeah.
Do them at the first week. So the rest of the month, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
That's how you get ahead. It's just looking at, okay, it's just a small milestone here, and then you can focus on marketing. That's the batch. But why I batch is so I can market, because as you heard me say, I put out so much content around the podcast that I don't have time to be trying to record here and record there. It's just not going to work.
Yeah. And batching just helps because that way you have the material, you can create the content, you can start marketing it before the podcast even comes out, and it creates the curiosity and people want to go see it.
Exactly.
Or hear it, or find it somewhere. So everyone, visit Chris, go to his website, elitepodcastmarketing.agency. It's not .com, .agency, and just tell him, hey, Rob sent you. So running out of time, so we'll see you guys on the next episode. And Chris, thank you very much. You've been a big help, and I'm sure the audience appreciates everything that you guys, everything you shared with them. So
Thank you so much for having me.
all right, see ya.